The stream. We are reading Brian Jake's Castaway of the Flying Dutchman. Chapter 28. There's that grail they found yesterday. Mrs. Wynne put aside her worries temporarily. She was delighted to be asked out to dinner, despite more signs having been tacked to every public building in the village. She knew that the Drummond family well and had not been up to their farm since Captain Wynne had passed away. She became quite excited when Ben hinted that an important clue had been found, but even though she pressed him, he would not say more. Whistling up to his dog, Ben went off down the driveway. He wanted to discuss the night's events with John. The old lady watched the pair, suddenly glad she had taken the boy in from the sea and his black dog. She had a feeling events were starting to move along. Things were about to happen. Mrs. Wynne allowing herself a brief shudder of anticipation. The rest of her afternoon was spent rummaging out her wardrobe for something pretty to wear at dinner. The old lady was putting the finishing touches on her hair when Will drove Delilah to the gate. Alex and Amy were with him. The Labrador loped out and met Delilah and decided immediately that they would be friends, and stayed by the horse's side. The old seaman came striding up jauntily, his beard combed and fresh kerchief around his neck. He helped Mrs. Wynne up into the gig, and they were off. Dinner was a success, thanks to Elaine and Will's mother. Roast beef and potatoes with all the trimmings, followed by fresh strawberries and cream. Will and John cleared the table whilst the ladies sipped glasses of elderflower wine, which Amy and Alex's mother had sent along. Little William dozed off on the sofa, and Ben poured lemonade for his two young friends. John and the dairyman came in from the kitchen, carrying a glass of beer apiece. After supper, Will produced the chalice from behind his back and set it on the mantelpiece. It was filled with water and had 6 white roses in it. Mrs. Wynne stared at it, enraptured. "Oh, it's so beautiful. Does it belong to your family, Sarah?" Will's ma smiled. "No, it belongs to your family, Winnie." With Elaine and Will's ma excitedly related the tale of the discovery, Will showed something to the others. "Mis' Wynne ain't the only one getting a surprise this evening. Look what I found when I was emptying the wax from the pot." He placed a flat piece of wood about 8 inches long by an inch wide upon the table. It was dark, greasy, and well preserved from the tallow that had encased it. Ben turned it over, running his thumb over the wood. "There's something carved on it. Hard to make out, though." Alex produced a pencil stub from his pocket. "Let me try." They held the lamp close as he ran the pencil lead inside the carved roots. His sister studied the results. "It looks like the letter U, carved alongside 8 times, with some sort of stick-legged creature at the end. Very roughly drawn. Looks like 2 dogs to me." The big lab sniffed disdainfully and pawed at Ben's hand. "Dogs, indeed. If I were a dog and I looked like that, I'd drown myself. I'd say it looks more like 2 horses. You tell her, pal. Go on, defend your friend the dog." Ben did, and Will and John were inclined to agree with him. At the other end of the table, Mrs. Wynne held the chalice lovingly. "Thank you, all of you. This is the most marvelous discovery. I don't want to sound ungrateful, but I wish that it had been something less beautiful and more practical. like the deeds to Chapel Vale. That's what I really need. The farmer's normally cheerfully face darkened. Aye, that rogue Smithers ain't even made us an offer for our hillside farm yet. I wouldn't let him over the pasture fence. Still, if they start a quarry and a factory, we'd be forced to leave. A man can't dairy farm with all kinds of blasted machinery chugging night and day. My business would be ruined. It ain't right, I tell you. It just ain't right. Elaine lifted the sleeping baby from the couch. We know, my dear, but they got the law and the big boss friends in London, aye, and plenty of money too. All we got is good intentions and time that's getting shorter by the day. The blue-eyed boy interrupted. But we've got the golden chalice and the carved stick, which has some kind of clue, got to be some kind of clue. We can't give up. Who knows? The next thing we turn up may be the deeds. With the value of the chalice and the deeds to the land, we'll soon have the upper hand. John stared hard at the stick, scratching his beard. But where do we look? There may be a clue in the carving on the stick, but there's no words, no rhyme, no riddle. Maybe the carving is describing some place, 8-letter U's, and what were we to think is a horse? Where's that? Will's ma spoke up. Would a map of the area help ye? Ben felt a tremor of anticipation. Have you got one? Without a word, Sarah Drummond went off to her bedroom. She returned with a framed picture. It was a child's picture of St. Peter's Church on a hilltop, drawn in lead pencil and colored neatly in colored wax crayons. Will flushed to the roots of his hair. Oh, Ma, you ain't gonna show him that old thing. I was but 10 years old when I drew that in school. She shook her head, reading out the writing across the top. Master William Drummond, age 9 years old, class 3A. Ben studied it. Pretty good for a 9-year-old, Will. Will's ma slit the pasted backing strip with her finger. Will drew it for me. I always liked it, but that's not why I want to show it to you. Take a look at this. From behind her son's child artwork, Sarah slid out a paper yellowed with age. 'Tis an ancient map of Chapel Vale's village and its surroundings. She unfolded 2 creases where the map had been folded, under one toward the top and another toward the bottom of the map, commenting, I can remember looking at this when I was a little girl. Don't know who put it there, but it came from, or where it came from. But as you see, the map's bigger than the frame. Whoever put it in there had to fold the paper to make it fit. It's a very old map of hereabouts, but except for the railway station and no other 2 bits, Chapel Vale ain't changed much, has it? Now then, Missy, can you read the writing on the parts that were folded? My eyes ain't up to it. Amy held the map up to the lamplight and read haughtily, EDW, Anno Domini 1661. That's what it says along the top. The bottom has 2 lines of writing. Lord, if it be thy will and pleasure, keep safe for the house of De Win thy treasure. The old ship carpenter's voice shook with excitement. Ben, lad, those are the very words written on the 2 bits of paper I glued together. Here, look, I've got it with me. He took the repaired paper from his back pocket and read it out, the lines triumphantly. Lord, if it be thy will and pleasure, keep safe for the house of De Win thy treasure. Word for word, the same well sink me. Ben found himself laughing at his friend's delight. Don't sink just yet, mate. Let's take another look around and together. The writing seems the same as EDW. Edmund D. Wynne. Alex made a very sensible suggestion. Your thin paper is almost like a tracing, John. Why don't you lay it on top of the map and see if the writing matches up? John passed the thin paper to Amy. My hand's beginning to shake with excitement. You do it. Brushing aside her dark hair, the girl placed the map flat on the table. With careful precision, she laid the thin paper on top, nudging it gently until the two lines of writing were exactly on top of each other. It matches almost perfectly. Every dot and loop, Edmund de Win's writing, top and bottom, line for line. Alex placed his thumbs at the far side of both papers. I'll hold them steady. Anybody got a pencil? Being a carpenter, John invariably had a well-sharpened pencil stub behind his ear, which he produced. He winked at the boy. Ah, ha, ha, I see your plan, shipmate. You want me to mark the map through the four holes of the tissue paper. Hold her steady now. As the old seaman painstakingly marked the map through the four holes in the thin paper, Ben caught a thought from the Labrador. Look at Winnie. There's a picture of hope. You can see she really believes things are starting to happen. Ben returned the thought. Aye, it's not just her. Look at Will and Ma. Look at us all. I'm glad the angel sent us here, pal. Smithers and his London gang. Don't know it yet, but I think they'll find folk aren't too easy to ride roughshod over anymore. Will removed the thin paper from the position. They gathered round the table to view the pencil dots as a finger tapped on the first mark he recognized. Look here, it's our farm. And the well, too. Ha, we've already solved one bit of the puzzle, right, friends? Which is the next one. Come on, young fella, I'm beginning to like this. His ma clapped her hands together and rubbed them gleefully. Me too. Never thought I'd be part of a treasure hunt. Alex tapped the flat stick against his hand, staring at the map. We've solved the first Saint's problem. That's Luke. So let's write Luke over the dot where the farmhouse is. John nodded in admiration. Well said, lad. So that leaves Matthew, Mark, and John. I think they'll be clockwise positions. Stands to reason, don't it? The astute old lady's eyes twinkled as she took a pencil, licking the point briefly. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Blessed the bed that I lie on, clockwise, eh? Then this is the way it should go. She wrote lightly over the three dots thus. Mark, Luke, John, and Matthew. They went back to pondering the problem. Will stood silent, his arms folded, when suddenly his voice the cut the silence. St. John, that's the next one we should look for if we're going clockwise. What I'm thinking, the next mark is right where the railway station stands now. His wife peered close to the mark belonging to St. John. When I went to school, old Mr. Blaithwaite told us that it's about where the blacksmith once had his stables. Now the meanings of the mark on the stick dawned upon Ben. He took the flat piece from his Alex. Of course, two horses and a lot of U's. I bet the U's are meant to be horseshoes. Mrs. Wynne squeezed Ben's hand. Marvelous. I wish I was as quick thinking as you. But I just had an awful thought. Suppose they built the railway station over the stables then? Elena frowned. Let's hope not. Don't you go fretting just yet, my dear. You'll get to see We'll go and see Mr. Blaithwaite. He'll know if anybody does. The old lady sighed. You're right. We'll just have to wait and see. Thank you for the lovely dinner, Elaine. You too, Sarah. Oh dear, it's getting late. We'd best head back home. Miss Wynne had the chalice wrapped in tablecloth that she intended leaving with Mr. McCackey, the lawyer, for safekeeping. They all climbed into the cart, and Will delivered them to their homes. Ben had already laid his plans for a midnight encounter with Wilf Smithers. As Will was helping Mrs. Wynne from the jig, Ben winked at Amy and Alex, and John, his voice dropping to a whisper, "See you later." It was still only 10 o'clock when Ben assisted Mrs. Wynne to her room. She thanked him. "What an exciting evening, Ben. Let's hope there's good news for us in the morning. Don't stay up too late now, and lock up before you go to bed. Oh dear, I'm exhausted." Chapter 29. Got Horatio there on the cover. Ben sat at the kitchen table, the big black Labrador at his feet, each immersed in his own thoughts. Horatio sat with his tail curled about both front paws, watching a moth beating against the outer window pane, trying vainly to reach the lamplight. It had been 10 minutes since the hall clock chimed 11:30. Ben blinked and rubbed his eyes. "Come on, Ned, time to go." He took the kitchen key from its hook and quietly opened the door to the rear of the house. Horatio followed them out, purring. The big Labrador passed the cat a thought. "You can't come with us." The cat replied, "Brr, Horatio go catch butterflies." The big moth had been beating itself against the window, flew into the kitchen, and began circling the lamp. The dog turned to the cat with a sweep of his paw, commenting, "Look, there's a moth. They're fatter than butterflies. Go catch him. Bet you can't." Horatio curled his tail disdainfully. "Meow, Horatio catch butterflies. Brr. Moth be easier to catch. You watch." He ran back indoors, leaping on the table, and began dabbing his paw at the moth. "Rar, soon catch mop fly." The big dog nodded. "That's the stuff, Horatio. You catch the mop fly and have a midnight snack. See you later." "Humph, mop fly indeed. You soon have me dotty as yourself." Ben locked the kitchen door, staring curiously at his friend. What was that all about? Ned passed him a despairing glance. "Mop flies, you wouldn't understand. Come on, our friends will be waiting." Amid the dark night shadows, Wilf Smithers and his gang stood in the alley outside Evan's tea shop. Regina took a fob watch which she had received for her birthday and consulted it. "Nearly 10 minutes to midnight. He should be here by now." A thin, nervous-looking boy named Archie gnawed his thumbnail. "I don't think he's coming. Hadn't we better go back home? My mom and dad don't know I sneaked out." Wilf grabbed him by the earlobe, tugging him up onto his toes. "Scared stiff? That's your trouble, Archie. Well, go on, then run back home quick. But you won't be in this gang anymore if you do." Tomo pulled a face at Archie. "Beat it back home. Who needs you, you skinny little worm?" Wilf let go of Archie and contempt turned his contempt on the fat boy. "Who asked you, put in face? You look twice as scared as he does." "Oh, I don't know. He probably looked about 1.5 times as scared as poor Archie, right, Tormo?" Wilf almost jumped with fright as the blue-eyed boy emerged from the shadows. He recovered himself quickly and snarled, "How'd you get here?" As the black lab and Amy and Alex materialized out of the darkness, Ben smiled. "Same way you did, of course. How's that hand? Still sore?" Wilf smiled thinly back at his foe. "Forget my hand. You're here because you cheated me at that fight, but you won't dodge your way out of this one. I bet that you're a sniveling coward, too, and too scared to take a dare, aren't you?" Ben shrugged. "Why shouldn't I take a dare? Why should I take a dare?" Regina called out scornfully from behind Wilf. "'Cause if you don't, then we'll all know you're a coward." Alex answered him. Ben's no coward. She sneered. Oh, shut up, Alexandria. Amy blazed at the girl. And you shut up, you great bully. Ben placed himself between them. There's no need for this name-calling. I'll take your dare, Wilf, providing it's not something stupid like jumping off the church roof and landing on my head, or punching the school wall with my bare hand. There was one or two snickers from the gang. Wolf silenced them with a glare before turning back. It's nothing like that. There's nothing daft about this dare, so will you take it? Ben flicked hair from his eyes. Go on, then. What is it? Wilf took the fob watch from Regina and glanced at it. 2 minutes ago, right at the stroke of midnight, you will go into the almshouse where the mad professor lives, alone. We'll wait to see that you do. We will, well, will you do it? The boy appeared to hesitate and backed slightly. Wilf grinned wolfishly. Ha, you're scared. Ben sounded unsure of himself. No, not, I just have my reasons for not wanting to go into the almshouse. Regina pointed a finger at him. Coward! Coward! Alex placed himself in front of his friend. He looked very pale and his knees were shaking and he spoke in a voice fairly above a whisper. Leave him alone. Ben's already proven he's no coward. I'll take the dare for him. I'll do it. Wolf stared at him scornfully. You? Ha ha ha. I can hear your knees knocking like clappers. Do you mean to tell me you're taking the dare to go in that place? The boy clenched his fists until his knuckles showed white. He swallowed hard and nodded his head. Wolf curled both hands like claws, advancing on Alex, eyes wide, his voice in a mock horrified tone. You know what you'll find in that almshouse, little boy? Spiders, cobwebs, rats, ancient ghosts, and the madman. Few of the gang giggled and shuddered with nervous anticipation. Someone gave a hollow, ghostly whoop. Wolf silenced them with a glare before he turned back on his victim. Ah, yes, the great bearded man. He's got a big shotgun, you know. But I don't suppose he'd use it on a little shrimp like you. No, I bet he's got a butcher's knife and hooks and hangman's noose all ready for young boys called Alex who come knocking at his door at midnight when it's pitch dark. Ben grasped his friend's arm. There was a note of frightening plea in his voice. Don't do it, Alex. He dared me. I'll go. But Wilf had different ideas. He pulled the towel-head lad away from his companion. The bully was enjoying tormenting Alex. Oh, no, you don't. You've already proved yourself a coward by refusing the dare. I'm going to let him go and get murdered. He wants to take your dare, don't you, Alexandria? Amy was about to stand in her brother's defense when Ben warned her with a glance, and Alex replied, I'll go, but if I do, are you willing to take a dare in return? That's fair enough, isn't it? Dare for dare? A ready murmur of agreement came from the gang. It sounded good enough to them. Wilf was their leader. He was big, strong lad. Nobody ever questioned his courage. Wilf realized he would lose face if he refused in front of his own gang. Fancy backing down from a mousy little runt like Alex Somers, Wilf sneered. All right then, but like your pal said, provided it's nothing stupid, I'll take your dare. What is it, Jellylegs? There was laughter and approval from the Grange gang. Wilf swelled his chest and grinned to show them he was fearless. The young boy drew in a deep breath, gathering himself. I dare this. If I'm in the almshouse more than 2 minutes, then you've got to come in and get me out. Regina spoke out scornfully. Huh? Anything you can do, Wilf can do. If you're not scared, he certainly isn't. More murmurs of disapproval arose from the gang. They had every confidence in their leader. Unfortunately, Wilf did not share their belief. He found himself wishing he had not started the whole business of silly dares. Ben interrupted his thoughts. It's almost midnight. Shouldn't we all get over to the almshouse? Regina cast him a wilting glance. You and your dog can do what you like, coward. The Labrador shot his master a thought. Shall I nip her ankle? The boy patted his faithful friend. No need. Things are working quite nicely, pal. Alex is a great actor. They crouched to one side of the rickety iron gate behind a lilac that grew over the fence. Regina looked at her watch. It turned 12. Get moving, you. The young boy opened the gate and crept hesitantly toward the door of the almshouse. There was a titter from the gang as Regina called out in a loud whisper, Go on, he won't eat you, I don't think. Reaching the alms door, Alex paused, and raising his hand, he knocked faintly twice. The door flew open, and there was John, looking like something out of a nightmare. He had a blanket wrapped around his shoulders like a flowing cloak, flour on his face, lamp black underneath his eyes, and two hazelnuts hanging down from his upper lips like fangs. Laughing madly, he grabbed Alex and pulled him inside, slamming the door shut. The effect was startling. Led by Wilf and Regina, the Grange gang fled screaming across the square. Ned went around the back like a dark streak, cutting their way through the Evans shop alley by blocking off the far end. Ben and Amy came dashing across the square in the gang's wake, effectively pinning them in the narrow alley. Ben tipped Amy the wink. You tackle Wilf, leave Regina to me. Amy pushed her way through the melee of the milling gang and found Wilf standing paralyzed in front of the snarling Ned. She grabbed the boy by his shirt front and shook him. Get back to the almshouse and help my brother. You were the one who thought all this up and dared him. Come on. I'm going to see that you'll carry out your end of the dare. She began to drag Wilf away from the wall he was huddled against. Everyone saw it. Wilf Smithers collapsed on the ground, clutching his bandaged hand and blubbering like a baby. Wah, I'm sick. My hand's hurting. Let go of me, please. I want to go home. Wah. Regina had been scrambling her way back to the gang instead of escaping into the square when Ben grabbed her hand. Where are you going? What about you? You going to help Alex? You were the one calling all the names. Why don't you take the dare for Wilf? She broke out in tears. It wasn't anything to do with me. It was all Wilf's idea. He said we should do it. Ben called out to the others. Amy and I are going back to the almshouse. You lot run and get some help. Fetch a policeman, quick. The mention of police involvement sent them all stumbling past the black Labrador off into the darkness. My dad doesn't know I'm out. I'm not going to the police station. Nothing to do with us. It was Wilf. Ned let them go. Amy planted her sole firmly against Wilf's bottom and shoved him away. Get out of my sight, coward. Ben released Regina as she shot off sobbing. In a trice, the alley was deserted, save for Amy, Ben, and his dog. The sounds of bolts being withdrawn from the Evans side door caused Ned to melt back into shadows. A light went on, throwing a golden shaft across the galley. Baldwin Evans' huge night-gowned figure appeared in the open doorway. She was holding a hooded-like window pole and holding it to her mop cap, squinting at Ben. Indeed to goodness, what's all the row out here, boyo? Ben flicked out his tousled hair and smiled disarmingly. Sorry about the noise, Miss Evans. My dog got loose, and I was calling out for him. I don't suppose you've seen him. A gruff bark from nearby sent the boy running off, followed by Amy, who was calling, Here, Ned. Good dog. Here, boy. Mrs. Evans shook her head as she closed the door. I hopes they get him. I need my sleep. Chapter 30. Got a pocket watch. I actually have one of those. Pocket watch. Somewhere in my luggage. I'll try and find it after this. The ship's carpenter and Alex had cocoa made for Ben, Amy, and Ned as they entered the almshouse through the back door window. They related what had happened in the alley, the young boy and John roaring with laughter at Amy's impression of Wilf sobbing and wanting to go home, hugging his injured hand. Ben sipped his cocoa and winked at Alex. Wait till they find out tomorrow that you faced the mad professor and lived to tell the tale. I don't think the Grange gang or Wilf will ever bother you again, Alex. Or you, Amy. It was great to see how you went at the bully and had him bawling in front of his own gang. They'll respect you from now on. Alex put his empty mug down. But only because of you, Ben. The blue-eyed boy patted Alex heartily on the back. Nonsense, mate. All I did was suggest a thing or two. The rest was you, having confidence in yourself. Isn't that right, Ned? The dog nodded. John looked over the rim of his coffee mug at him. I suppose that was his collar itching again, eh, Ben? The strange boy's eyes twinkled. You supposed right, mate. Alex was beginning to feel sleepy. He blinked. Suppose what? The black lab leaped into the window frame, followed by Ben, who chuckled. Suppose to meet at the library first thing in the morning, so we can have a word with Mr. Blaithwaite. Good night, pals. John, we'll see you, Amy, and Alex get home all right. Ben and Ned vanished into the night like twin shadows. Amy stared at the empty space. There's something odd about Ben. It's almost as if he and Ned are magic. What do you think, John? That ship's carpenter wiped the last of the lampblack off with a damp rag. Ben's no more magic than you, me, or Alex. He's just a good eye and clever. He certainly taught me a thing or two, as old as I am. Come on, mates, I'll walk you as far as your house. Not quite as far, Alex replied. Leave us at the end of the lane. We've got to sneak by the pantry window. John's craggy face broke into a smile. See, you're learning fast, pal. At breakfast next morning, Hetty the maid brought the post in to the dining room. She placed it next to Obadiah Smithers' plate, bobbed a brief curtsy, and left. Mrs. Smithers cast a worried face at Wilf's empty chair. Poor Wilfred, perhaps he'll stay in bed because he's still feeling poor. I'll tell Hetty to make him a tray and take it up. No, you won't, Madame. Smithers slit an envelope vigorously as with his egg-stained breakfast knife. Let the young whelp stay abed until he's hungry enough to get himself down here and take his place at the table. Confounded fool, punching a wall of all things, losing to a lad half his size. Oh, I've heard all about it from Regina Woodworth. Regina told him, can't hold my head in the village, man with a great strapping son who doesn't know the difference between another feller's nose and a schoolyard wall. Huh. Maud Bowie helped herself to a boiled egg and tapped the top daintily with her spoon, remarking caustically, about what anyone could expect from that silly oaf. Smithers slammed the letter down on his plate, his side plate, cracking it in the process. He glared at Maud. Keep your opinions to yourself, missy. It's not your place to criticize my family while you're a guest in my house. Sensing another verbal battle, Mrs. Smithers withdrew from the room quietly. She would take Wilfred a tray herself. Maud thrust her chin out defiantly at the older man. Sir, an oaf is an oaf, in any circumstances, more so when he is a bad-mannered oaf. That is my opinion, like it or not. Smithers, pretending not to hear, sorted a letter from the small pile of mail and tossed it across the table. This is for you, young lady, from your father by the writing. She took a nail file from her pocket and slit the letter neatly open, her eyes blazing at Smithers. Sir, I give you your proper title. My name is Maud. You may address me as Maud, Mrs. Maud, Miss Maud, or Miss Bowie. I resent being called Missy or young lady. I trust you will refrain from such expressions in the future. Smithers pretended to read his letter. He tapped it with his knife. From the Country Planning Office, final approval of compulsory purchase of Chapel Vale lands 2 days from today, providing, of course, that no majority property holder turns up with deeds to more than one section. Even old Mrs. Wynne can't argue with that. She can only prove ownership of her own house. She has no papers for the Almshouse ruin or the other land. I made sure of that. Got a friend in the official search office, you know. Look, there's a formal notice with the letter to be posted in the square. I'll remove that one, the old one, and put this one up. How's that for progress? Well, what's your father got to say? Maud folded the letter carefully and placed it on the table. He says that the 4 men I asked for should be up by the evening train tomorrow. He has paid them expenses and money for their train tickets. Smithers' expression cut her short. Well, I'm damned if I'll pay them a bent penny, Missy. I already told you what I think of your proposal, sending toffs and Balgards up from London. What'll happen if they're found to be connected to this venture? I'll be ruined, and so will your father and his fancy London partners. There where we'll all be, eh? Answer me that, my dearie. Maud's normally sallow parlor grew ashen with temper. I tell you, Smithers, you'd be sitting out here at the end of some rural backwater with your fiddling little business. This is a big adventure. That's why you're in with proper London company, and doing quite well out of it too. My father's company often uses the methods that he needs, legal or not. That way you get things done in this, that's the way you get things done in this modern age. And you don't look so self-righteous. You had children trying to get things done for you. Though if you call his son and his gang, what are you paying them, eh? Sweeties, pennies? Well, that's all changed. You're in the game now, for better or for worse. It'll be worse if we listen to your pilfering ideas, but better all around if you leave it to the experts. The old lady Wynne, she'll be shifted sooner than you think, and for good, thanks to my suggestion to my father. Stop acting like a silly oaf. Though the habit seems to run in your family. Maud's ankle-length taffeta dress rustled stiffly as she swept out of her chair and vacated the room. Smithers sat open-mouthed at the girl's impertinence. His heavy features flushing dark red, he went to vent to his ire with a bellow that would have done a stricken water buffalo credit, sending cockery and coultry flying as an outstretched arm flailed across the table. Sitting up in bed, Will heard the roar and the ensuing crash. He started with a fright, upsetting his breakfast tray, a glass of milk, toast, lemon curd, two soft-boiled eggs spilled into his lap. He sobbed, floundering about in the mess, his mind running riot. Had his father found out the last night his second foolish scheme had gone astray? Wasn't it his fault if the Somers boy had gone and found himself murdered by the mad professor? Had the police found out yet? Would they come asking questions? Regina and the gang wouldn't take blame. They'd lay on him, their leader. Then what? Court? Imprisonment? Regardless of the breakfast mess, Will pulled the coverlet over his head, wishing fervently that it would all go away. Tears, egg, milk, and lemon curd mingled on his face. He jumped as a timid knock sounded at the door. Finish with your tray, Master Wilfred. It was only Hetty. A muffled scream broke from behind the stained contemporary counterpane. Go away! And that is where we'll stop for today. I think we got I'm gonna say 5 streams left on this. I think 5 streams left from where the papers are at. All right, let me sing to you. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land, and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marines. Our flags unfurled to every breeze, from dawn to setting sun. We have fought in every clime and place where you could take a gun. In the snow of far-off northern lands and in sunny tropic scenes, you will find us always on the job, the United States Marines. Here's health to you and to our corps, which we are proud to serve. In many a strife we fought for life and never lost our nerve. If the Army and the Navy ever looked on heaven's scenes, they will find the streets are guarded by United States Marines. Semper Fi, hoorah. It's a nice day out. A little warm. Nice day out though. All right, let me pray for you. I'll get out of here. Dear Lord, your head of protection on everybody. They need food, they need housing, they need transportation. Please provide it in their life. In your holy and heavenly name. Amen. Thank you all the viewers, chatters, feelers, and listeners. Appreciate you. Be strong, be smart, value your life, be brave. Emmanuel, God with us.